Greetings, welcome back. We are back. Yes, indeed. We are back. Yes.
Let's go,
Better
team.
than ever. Better than ever. Let's go.
Yes,
Wish
we
we had
are.
the horn right here. Bum, 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 bum.
Death, Taxes, and Sports, episode 81. We have been away just living life and just recharging and just recharging. That's all I will say. Recharging, but still F the Chargers. But anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that. But I'm just excited to be here. I'm glad to be here with you guys. Ben Holloway, Marissa Tigney from Heard That podcast. I saw a lot of your stuff on Facebook. You've been doing some great work. You've been doing great work. Enough said. That's all we can say.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
The queen of DTS. We're going to call you the official queen of DTS. So glad for you to be back. Gary the Legend Johnson will come on at some point when he wakes up from his nap. He's an old man, so pardon. So, guys. So tonight we're going to be discussing the NFL draft. Of course, we have to do that. The NBA playoffs and the failure of my beloved Boston Bruins. But we'll get to that later. We won't have to worry about that too much. But, guys, let's get to some NFL drafts. And, for me, there were a lot of surprises. And, Marissa, I'm going to throw it to you because I think there's an obvious surprise that I feel you might want to say, but you may not. But who knows? You have the floor. What is the one surprise that stands out? Because I think you know where I'm going.
All right, listen, here's the thing. And I'm rocking the Lions because, number one, if you're a true Lions fan, you got to know that Brad Holmes is a risk taker. And the meltdown that happened from us being the sixth pick, dropping to number 12 and grabbing a running back, it took me by surprise. It took a lot of the One Pride fan base by surprise. It took the running back that they drafted by surprise because he was expected to go possibly in the late 20s, first round, late 20s, possibly early second round. But Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, and the team saw something in Jahmyr Gibbs, that his quickness, his speed, his consistency with the football that made them pick him. And I mean, I'm not going to lie. It took me a moment, more than a minute, because I just, you all saw my post on Facebook. I didn't understand the pick whatsoever. But the more I began to process it, I was like, either we just obtained Montgomery. Swift has been lackluster, if he stays healthy. So in the back of my mind, and I said this to somebody in the discussion, I was like, we're going to deal on DeAndre Swift. And he's either going to Philly to reunite with all of his Georgia alum, since you might as well call them the Philadelphia Bulldogs, or he's going to go somewhere else. And sure enough, I mean, obviously, it came to fruition. But that shock went away real quick after that dealing, and then what Holmes and Campbell and the rest of the Lions organization did in the second and third day. I was really happy about that. He made up for it day 2 and day 3.
And we're going to get to that. And, one of the things about football is just hold that thought, because football is about pivoting. And out of respect, we want to be able to give Gary his opportunity. There was, like we said here, we are a sports family, but we are a family. And Marissa, we will get back to that in a second. But Gary, like Absolutely. I said, what you want to do today is too important, and we're here for you. And we want to give you that full opportunity for you, sir, to give the tribute, and we will give you the floor, sir. Take all the time that you need.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry for my tardiness. I'm actually out on the West Coast right now again, so time zone difference has been a bit of a hassle for me. But I'm in LA and I'm heading back tomorrow. It was another short trip, Jeff. It's not like I've been out here for a long time. But I saw the frustration. Just wanted to clear that up first. But yeah, I just want to first off thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to kind of do this. So since we last taped, my aunt passed. Now, normally I wouldn't share that information. Not because it's, I'm a pretty open book. I don't really like keep things to a secret, but this was one of those things I'm like, well, Gary, why are you bringing up your aunt? While my dad was the one that got me into sports, my aunt was the one that got me talking about sports. And, it was us having back and forth conversations about various topics. She was an ardent defender of LeBron through and through, from the decision on through to the present day, which at least that made her a Laker fan, and I was on my side in that case. She was one of those people that really like pushed me to do a podcast. It's funny and ironic. I actually wanted to have her on at some point in the future, just because, for this woman 75 years old, she was extremely knowledgeable about sports. She knew what she was talking about, and was definitely one of those people that, looks can be deceiving. The sweet church, God-fearing woman can break down an offense like nobody's business in any sport. I'm going to miss those conversations with her. I'm going to miss her in general. She's my godmother as well. So like there's a very close bond. And I come from a very small family as it is, relatively speaking. Obviously, I have a pretty big extended family, but like of my immediate kinfolk, like we're a small group. So her loss is a huge loss for all of us. I love her. I'm going to miss her, but I just felt the need to just talk about her and thank her because, like I said, she got me talking about sports. She got me to this point. And while, yes, genetically, I am my mother and my father's child, down to looks, down to personality, down to certain traits, anything good came from her. And I don't want to say that my parents didn't give me anything good either, but like there's no one person that has impacted who I am as a person more than she did. And that is going to change who I am. I'm obviously not going to be drastically different. I think I'm pretty much dead set this way. But, what I do, I'm doing in her name and in her honor. And, yeah, so I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. But, yeah, this one's for Mary.
All I'll add to that, Gary, is she's proud of you, as we are.
Yeah, man.
Here.
Nice to you.
Yeah, you are her legacy, so carry on her legacy with everything you do, Gary.
Oh, I will. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So, like we said, man, we do the sports conversation for fun, but, we're still human at the end of the day. And I think it's important to be able to have a platform to be able to show that human side. Like I've said, I've known you for damn near almost 16 years now. And, I always consider you family. Ben, you as well, and Marissa, the queen of DTS, you as well. So, we're all human, and there's life outside of this. So we're always here to support one another. And so, is there anything else that you would like to say, Gary? We want to give you as much time as you like, sir. We would be here all night talking about it. Trust me, I have more than enough material. So
he said this prior too. He's like, give me my 2 or 3 minutes and then let's go.
Like I'm serious. I'm dead serious. Like,
yeah, no, I know.
And I sincerely appreciate that from all of you, and I mean that. But I'm dead serious. Like, if it were up to me, this would be an entire Aunt Mary tribute episode, and we're not doing that. There's too much sports to be talked about, and I know for her, she would tell me to shut my ass up and let's talk. let's talk these sports. So,
all right, let's get back to it. All right,
let's do it.
All right. So, Marissa, let's get back to it. And cheers to Gary, cheers to Aunt. Again, so Marissa, this draft pick here, like, what are some of your thoughts? Because man, there was just a lot of shock for me.
Well, I think the beautiful thing, and just finish off of what Gary is saying, I think all of us here, the beautiful thing is, and we communicate outside of the show, is that we find sports therapeutic. Doesn't matter what we're going through, the ups and downs, but something in sports, whether it's a game that we're watching or something that, an underdog, and I know that we're going to talk about this in the show, a team that gets early elimination and everything else, and all of us were just like, texting each other, and it's like, my God, we're up so late, but we're talking about this thing, and it's just like puts our perspective and then puts all whatever we're going through on the shelf for that moment. So I think it's beautiful of us connecting this way as far as sports. But as you asked, Jeff, another surprise, and if you were watching the draft through ESPN, and the utter meltdown of Mel Kiper is how far Will Levis dropped the QB from Kentucky. I thought that man was going to have doggone a panic attack / heart attack of how many times he has like mentioned his name. Y'all know I'm right. Every 10 to 15 minutes that he was in there, and then the cameras kept showing him, and then the cameras kept showing Will Levis and his girlfriend making this face like, if y'all don't pick my mother boyfriend in this draft. But it was something about his a pro day at Kentucky that made him drop, and something in his interviews that made him drop. It wasn't so much about the combine. It was something about that. So the need for him in the top 10, which surprised a lot of people, Mel Kiper, how he dropped. Now, with that being said, yes, he was picked up early in the second round by the Tennessee Titans. We'll see how he fits there and what they're going to do, with Ryan Tannehill, what they're going to do with the young man that they picked up last year. Malik Willis, I believe is his name. And while reports have been that he's not working out well at Tennessee, but who knows? And who knows if, mayonnaise and coffeecup.com is going to work out. We don't know, but it was just a surprise to me how far he dropped. I mean, not even being picked up at all. And then I'll finish with this. A surprise and a benefit on our end was Brian Branch falling to the Lions and how far he fell. And then his answer being that he was ready to get to work and that, he thought he was going to go the first day. It didn't happen, ended up going on day 2. And I think he will fit perfectly for what plans that we will have, the Detroit Lions will have for him. So I'm happy that he is on One Pride.
And, hey, cheers to that. But the Will Levis one, Ben, you and I had talked about it through text a little bit. I really thought that he was going to get drafted over Anthony Richardson. And I thought that he was going to be more of a type against Indiana, for Indianapolis. And Ben, I know you got some thoughts on that one, man, because I didn't think that Anthony Richardson was going to get drafted ahead of Will Levis.
Yeah, so Will Levis. Will Levis. So,
Will Levis.
Two things on Mr. Will Levis. First off, dropping to the second round, yes, but I'm sorry, the Titans drafting him 1 year after Malik Willis, I don't know. You're really going to give up on a quarterback who Malik Willis, let's just say, not looking it up, let's say he's 21 years old. Maybe he's 22. And you're already he sucks. He played a little bit his rookie season, and he didn't play well. But, I don't know. To me, it's a little bit what are you doing? Why? I don't know. I understand the talent, but to me, it's just a bad look, and it's Malik Willis is never going to be anything in a Titans uniform. You literally just ruined his Titans career, at least. Not to say he couldn't do anything. Not to say he can't be anything in the league, but it's that was a little bit mind-blowing to me. And you mentioned Anthony Richardson, him going top 5 with his college statistics and his game tape. Forget the measurements. Forget how fast he is, how far he can throw. I cannot see him being – anyways, I mean, sure, his physical talents are there, but watch the game. The game, the eye test, it does not equal top 5. All his measurables and his, running and the vertical jump and all this, his speed, that's one thing, but that's with nobody in his face. That's not in a game. That's running or jumping in free space. So that's a big one. And then Bijan Robinson going number 8 to Atlanta. Atlanta has such a flawed roster. You did not need to spend that draft capital, top 10 pick on a running back. And then real quick, I will leave with 2 teams that were playoff teams that had bigger needs that drafted wide receivers. The Chargers drafted Quentin Johnson from TCU. the Vikings drafted Jordan Addison. Neither one needed a receiver in the first round.
And here's what I'm going to say, and then Gary, I'm going to toss it to you. Taking Bijan Robinson, I mean, obviously he was the best running back since Saquon, I think. But, I mean, here's the thing. They were fixing something that wasn't broken. They led the league in rushing attempts and were third in rushing yards. And Tyler Aguilar set the rookie franchise rushing record. Like, you did not need to – I get it. He's super talented. But you didn't need to do that. But again, it is what it is. This is a team that has so many different holes. But Gary, before I toss it to you, I think the one thing is for Houston, I kind of think they double dip with number 2 and number 3 because they really gave up a haul for him, right? They shipped to number 12 and number 33 overall. But here's the thing. They gave up their first rounder in 2024, third rounder. This is a team that is not going to contend in the next 3 seasons. So you really need – that's the type of move that you make when you are competing for a championship, Gary. Gary, you have the floor, sir.
I agree. I 100% agree.
I don't know. Well, Gary's up. Gary, you there? There you go.
Here we go. Here's Gary.
I'm here. No, because I was going to say Bijan Robinson going to Atlanta that early. Yeah, like I'm just thinking about like they need weapons at wide receiver. They need a secondary. Robinson's going to be good, but he's not going to push them into being a playoff team. He might give you a 1 or 2, like maybe, but I thought only other team that I looked at, I was like, what are you doing? Is kind of Green Bay. It's kind of, you need weapons for Jordan Love so we can figure out who or what he's going to actually be, and you really didn't address it the way that you should have, especially with your earlier picks. You made the trade with the Jets. You obviously just swapped picks. It wasn't really much of a jump from 15 to 13, but you could have done more. You should have done more. And now you're just kind of setting him up for failure, and now you're going to be looking at the 24 draft and seeing which quarterback, which I personally think might be a better draft anyway. You're going to look and see, like, who's out there. So you're just now setting yourselves back another, 2-3 seasons by your indecisiveness or your poor decision-making, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, listen, like Bijan Robinson, all I'm going to say is before we toss it to you, Marissa, is that the way that they drafted Kyle Pitts, they better utilize both those guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going to say. You better run the hell out of Bijan Robinson. He better have no. If he doesn't have at least an average of 25 touches a game, they have failed. There, I said it. But one more thing I'm going to say is that the Jets passing up on a wide receiver at number 15. This is a team that's in win now. And adding another receiver, I think, would have been the right move. But Gary, I feel like you have a second. I feel like you want to.
They're waiting for Mercedes Lewis. Don't you see? He's the answer to everybody's problems.
Oh my gosh!
They want to go drag him from under whatever rock that he's on, and he's going to be the savior for Gang Green. That's what Aaron Rodgers wants. That's what he's going to get. We're waiting on Mercedes Lewis.
Mercedes Lewis.
They'll be waiting for a long time.
Yeah.
God.
Or we do a midseason trade for Randall Cobb. Either one.
Oh my
gosh.
Oh man. But
waiting on Mercedes Lewis. That's awesome. That's like saying the Houston Texans are gonna go undefeated next season. No, they're not.
Oh, man. You know what? Let's just say this real quick for the Texans. Over under 6 games for the Houston Texans.
Under.
Marissa, Ben, then Gary.
Under.
They
drafted for getting ready to be a contender in about 2 to 3 years. They didn't draft for the right now.
Okay. But 6 wins though? I mean, that's 6 in a
It's a strong 5, man.
Okay.
Maybe 6.
I'll say right on the number 6.
Okay, Gary.
They are 2 years away from being 2 years away. 4 wins.
Okay. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna give it to them. I'm gonna say Mine is at 5.7 wins. So I'm going to round up and say that they're going to get 6 wins. Maybe they win 5 games in 3 quarters.
No, they're going to win 5 games and get that one tie. Come on, Jeff.
Hey, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But so, there's a lot of teams that had a lot of good drafts. There's a lot of teams that had a lot of bad drafts. And before I say anything, I had 3 teams that I gave grade A's for, and I want to see if the 3 of you were smart enough to agree with me. But I'm not going to say who. But Marissa, who was a team that stood out that had a good draft grade in your opinion?
I was really impressed with Seattle. I really was.
That's one of them.
I don't think, and you gentlemen can help me out, and Ben, you're really good with stats. When's the last time that Illinois had a top 10 player go in the draft? It's been a minute, or I don't know if they ever had been, but to go and get Devon Witherspoon,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was a phenomenal pick. And then you go down in the later rounds, or later, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
The same round. Ohio State wide receiver. Yeah.
Jackson Smith-Njigba.
From where? From where? Minnesota? From where?
Oh Jesus!
From where?
Ohio State, buddy.
Yes, from the team that beat them 2 years
in
a row.
You gotta say it. You gotta say it. That's great. That's adorable. That's adorable. Just say it. It's okay. I'm kidding you.
That team in Ohio that wears scarlet and gray, that got their feelings hurt 2 years in a row.
That's great. I'm still
go blue. But you know what? I'm not going to take away any talents from him. I know that he was, hurt for a moment, and then, not going to risk it because they weren't in a national championship or contending to be it. So, they did it very smart. And I know there was some Buckeyes that were very salty about the fact that he didn't come back and, play in their bowl game respectively. But he did it very smart, which turned out to be a benefit for Seattle when they picked him up. Why? Because he had an amazing combine and he had an awesome pro day. I don't know why he dropped as far as he did, because I was expecting him. I literally was expecting him to go into the top 10, no offense, possibly 15. But I think Seattle, hands down, had a great draft. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about how well they actually drafted. They drafted needs. It wasn't, a name brand that was out there that people did, the fans would say, oh, you got to go get this particular person, that particular person. Seattle looked at their roster. They knew they had needs that they had to fix. And I think that just those 2 picks and the Big Ten, shout out to the Big Ten, because the Big Ten never had more than 20 picks in the first 2 rounds. And I believe that they went 25 in the first 2 rounds of players from the Big Ten. That's massive. And that speaks volumes for players that are coming out of that conference. So, I think Seattle had a really great draft.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think the only downside was them drafting a running back, I think, in the 4th or 5th round.
Yeah.
But let's look at their last 2 draft class, Ben. Like, they addressed a lot of needs. They took my picks for my Broncos, but it's all good. And they did a really good job these last 2 seasons and really drafting with Kenneth Walker last season. If you look at their draft from last year, I gave them a grade of B- last year in our last year's episode. This year, moving up, I gave that thing an A. Mm-hmm. They're going to contend in the NFC West. They're going to do some things. But Ben, what you got?
Yeah, I had Seattle as well. I actually didn't have it written down, but I was, and some of the names they drafted I don't have, but Arizona did really well too. A lot of people, a lot of experts were saying Arizona did well. They got the best offensive lineman in the draft. The Eagles, as much as it being a Cowboys fan, sucks to say, what's real is what's real. Mm-hmm. They drafted amazingly. Got, Jalen Carter, who most people feel was the most talented player, most talented prospect in the draft. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the first round, get Nolan Smith. Mm-hmm. And then they drafted a corner from Georgia who slipped like a round further than what people thought. So the Eagles, and honestly, I wrote Dallas in there as well because I feel, they drafted for needs. They needed a big boy, and they got a big boy. Mm-hmm. their first round pick, Mazi Smith.
Yes.
He's a big man in the middle, defensive tackle. And then they also got a tight end from Michigan as well. That was kind of mixed.
Luke Schoonmaker, yes.
Mm-hmm. And, with the success that they've had with tight ends, with Schultz, who's obviously not there, but also Hendershot and Ferguson. Like Dallas knows how to draft tight ends and utilize their tight ends. So I had them in there, and yeah, Seattle, of course. They did a great job, which is ironic. Both Seattle and Dallas in the last, let's say, maybe 5 to 10 years draft extremely well, but don't win in the playoffs. But they draft really well. So.
Yeah. And then Gary, what we're going to do is we're going to toss it to you for draft grades and for best, and then you can start off with the worst. I'm just going to say real quick before I toss it to you, Gary, is that I really think the Cardinals did a very good job in this draft. I think they did a very good job.
That nobody's talking about.
That's what I'm saying. They added value picks in the first round. Exactly,
Mm-hmm.
Marissa. They added a first rounder and third rounder, which was needed, and they got Paris Johnson Jr. I think was the top ranked offensive tackle. And they're coming out with all those picks were essential, but the only thing is that they needed another running back to add some depth. But outside of that, I give them a solid B+ and an A. They're recouping for the future and being able to build up their team. But go ahead, Gary. For best, and then start off with the worst. Go ahead.
So you guys mentioned Arizona. I thought Detroit did very well in the draft as well. I'm going to go a little bit – a deceptively good draft was had by the Pittsburgh Steelers as well.
Yes.
Agreed. They basically tapped into Georgia and Wisconsin as far as drafting all of their players. The tackle Broderick Jones, Darnell Washington, the tight end. They're going to make life easier for Kenny Pickett and Najee Harris. I just think you take the onus off of them a little bit. I think that'll help matters. I think also Keanu Benton out of Wisconsin, Nick Herbig out of Wisconsin. I know that's on the defense, but I think you're adding another weapon to what could he has the potential. Herbig does to be that next great Pittsburgh defensive player that just is there for years or whatever. So I think Pittsburgh's been conservative, but it was smart. And I think, thank you for pointing that out as well, Marissa. You speaking of full circle, Joey Porter Sr. to Joey Porter Jr. I think, that story alone was worth the draft itself. And sidebar for Ben, with your Cowboys, that the scout they got to call his son to let him know that he's being drafted.
Yep.
As much as I hate your Cowboys with a burning, fiery passion, that was in fact a very cool moment.
Yeah. And he who knows what it's gonna end up being, but they're hoping obviously for like a Darren Sproles. It's just a moment. Absolutely.
In the NFL draft, we look for these things to happen, and look for these special occasions, and that was something that you don't have to be a Cowboys fan to kind of root for. So as far as a poor draft, Washington. How are you doing? What are you doing? So we're really riding the Taylor Heineke trade. That's what we're doing. You had Hendon Hooker. You had Will Levis inexplicably fall out the first round.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't draft a quarterback.
We'll take care of Hendon Hooker. Thanks.
Yeah. Yes. You guys have. You guys are in the cap rate with him, but you also drafted Emmanuel Forbes, and while yes, he's a solid ball hawk, he's a great cornerback. He's also very injury prone, and there are plenty of other cornerbacks that you could have drafted if you wanted to draft one so high as 16 in the draft. And then I'm gonna do a little sandwich, insult and praise for Dallas. Ben, you waited till the 5th round to draft an offensive lineman. So we're just gonna continue to expose Dak, and then this is what we're gonna be like. What's your team doing, Ben? What's up?
Yeah, I might not think they partially believe in prior draft picks, I would say, but yeah, I can go along with you there. Definitely a need and possibly something they could still address. But yeah, they have drafted a lot of offensive line the last 2 or 3 years, and there's been some injuries, and so I think I agree, but I think what they're banking on is their recent picks on the O-line to turn out, which maybe that's a risk, but I think that's the bet they're willing to make.
Yeah, the Cowboys, and we'll toss it to you, Ben, here in a second. Then Marissa, is that what the F are the Patriots doing? I'm gonna call him BB. You know who I'm talking about. BB Skittles hasn't won a playoff game since TB12 has left. And the
BB
draft
Skittles.
record, yeah, BB Skittles. And his draft record is pretty spotty. So we have a guy named Tyquan Thornton in the second round here. We got a guy named Marcus Jones here in round 3. Oh, by the way, we got Bailey Zappi. Oh, wow, that's really great. In West Kentucky. Now, his numbers in 2021 would think that this guy was just absolutely amazing. Had 5,960 rushing yards and 62 touchdowns.
Wait, Jeff. That's last year's draft. They drafted Zappi last year.
Oh. Anyway, didn't I just say, hold on. Listen. I said his record. I literally said that it's been spotty. I was getting ready to finish in 2021. You didn't give me a chance to finish. You were ready to cut me off. You were ready to cut me off. You were ready to cut me off. The level of disrespect. But anyway. But you get it. Look, you get what I'm saying. The Patriots, the Patriots. I mean, that's all I'm going to say. That's all. You get the point.
Listen, I'm proud of you for rocking that Denver Broncos jersey that you're doing. But where were they in this draft? I was waiting for y'all to have you had 4 or 5 picks, if I'm not mistaken. I was waiting for y'all to draft an edge rusher. I was waiting for y'all to draft needs, especially some help on the offensive line for a very overpaid, and I'm sure that he's going to be worth the money on the recoupable end, Russell Wilson. However, the only Wilson that people wanted to have in any kind of game was the football, not the football player. It was really sad about I didn't see anything happen with the Denver Broncos and what they needed for their team. I don't know what else I can expand on it, but it was just like they just did a disappearing act in this draft, and I was just really surprised about it. I think the 257th pick is the only one that I was familiar with, and that was it. So that was near the end of the draft. So.
Yeah.
You need to call your boys up and figure out what the heck happened and see if they're going to do something to make up for it before the season starts.
And no doubt. And we're gonna do a little bit of a pivot here because look, my Broncos, they drafted another receiver, and I'm just like, look, Tim Packer's coming back. We still have KJ Hamler. I didn't think we needed to draft another receiver. It just didn't make sense to me. And especially a guy who's like 5'10", like 95 pounds. I don't know. I just don't know. But we're going to get to Byrce Young and as well CJ Stroud here because we just want to get to that. Then we're going to pivot to the Bruins. Then we're going to get back to football because football is way better, and I don't want to be depressed talking about the Bruins. But, Ben, CJ Stroud or Byrce Young, who do we think is going to have the better season? I think it's going to be obvious because where they went to school, and you better pick right.
So better overall career, Byrce Young.
Oh,
sorry to hear that.
That's been my gut for the last few months. I think the size concerns are valid, but eye test, I just think Young is going to be the better quarterback over the long term.
Okay. I mean, we all make mistakes in life, but that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's all good. We all make mistakes. Gary, please make the right decision. And Marissa, I feel like I already know where you're going to go because you're a hater. But Gary, go ahead. Respectfully.
Yes, respectfully.
If you're asking the question who's going to have the better rookie season, I'm going to say Byrce Young. If you're asking me, wait, Jeff. If you're asking me who's going to have the longer career of the two, I'm going to go CJ Stroud. See, you over here getting upset. And I'm trying. I'm like,
I just had a thing on my neck.
Gotcha. Happens to the best of us. I understand. But yes, I think Byrce Young. I think there's more of an opportunity in what is otherwise just a very ho-hum division at this point for him to have enough of an impact to be like a Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year candidate and probably win out. But I think the CJ Stroud, if they have the proper management in place there in Houston, can have the career that Deshaun Watson should have had. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Now, Marissa.
Here's the thing with quarterbacks that are coming out, and gentlemen, you've seen it in the past few years. I think height no longer is an issue, and it shouldn't even be discussed when it comes to, you've seen on the media outlets about quarterbacks being too short. We had, Russell Wilson was 5'10" 3/4. You have Kyler Murray, who was shy of 6 feet. You had Drew Brees that was 6 feet 3/4. You got Byrce Young, who's out, shy of 5'11". When it comes to a rookie season, and my husband and I had talked about this, if he was able to start a game right now immediately and is in quarterback form, is CJ Stroud. Despite the fact that he struggled against my Wolverines in back-to-back games, his decision-making, to me, when he is in this NFL level, I think that he will pick this up very quickly. You can see it here's the thing: when you're watching the draft and you're seeing these players drafting, their emotions and everything, and their families hugging them and they're in shock and everything else. Something about CJ Stroud, and when he was, talk about how much he has worked hard and how much, he's ready to get to work, and I'm not knocking Byrce Young by any means, because he's going to have a successful career. But as far as a rookie season, I'm just going to go. My gut is telling me that CJ Stroud is going to definitely put that work in, and the results are going to pay off. Okay. See, you thought I was going to go one way, but
I don't know, because sometimes the hateration can be real, but that's okay.
Here's the thing, though. I will always be a Michigan fan, but here's the thing that I will always do is if they're on an opposing team and I know that they're good and I know that they're talented and I know that they have put in the work and they're going to go to the next level and shine if they continue to put in that work at this level that they work so hard to get, I'm going to give them all the flowers all day long.
Yeah, no doubt. No, it's all good. I just got to give you a hard time. I wouldn't be doing my job as a Buckeyes fan. But before we get to the Bruins,
and let me end it with Go Blue.
My concern with Byrce Young is not his height; it is his frame. Mm-hmm. The height doesn't concern me; it is the frame. You could be 6'5" and still be skinny and have a terrible frame and still get dinged up. That is my concern with him. And in the Texas game, he made me very, very, very nervous with the injury. So that's the only thing. I hope they protect him, but we'll see. But let's just get to the Bruins here real quick. Ben, I know you've been wanting to get to it. As a Bruins fan, I'm really, 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 really depressed about it. So, I was at the airport with my wife. Love you, girl. And I'm like, yes, they scored in the third period and they tied. They went to overtime. And I'm just like, WTF. I'm not even going to say all the stats because I know that, yeah.
Yeah, it was quite the upset. Between the two teams, the Florida Panthers, the regular season, Boston had 23 more wins and 43 more points. So we are talking about a huge upset. And Florida was down 3-1 in the series as well. They win Game 5 in Boston, take care of business at home, and come back Game 7. Speaking of Game 7 specifically, I just knew, I didn't know, but my gut was once Florida tied it, they were winning in overtime. That they needed to close it out in regulation. They didn't, obviously, and the curse of the President's Cup continues. The last team to win the President's Cup and win the Stanley Cup was 10 years ago. The Chicago Blackhawks, 2013. 10 years in a row, best regular season team hasn't won. There's something to that.
I mean, I don't even know if Marissa, if you're even a hockey person, but are you a hockey person, Marissa? Gary, you guys hockey people?
At times.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say I know enough to know like
we don't talk
like.
hockey.
No, I'm saying I know enough that one team has won the President's Trophy and made it to the second round since the Bruins, since Chicago won the Stanley Cup and won the President's Cup as well. Like, there's certain curses that just make no sense, and this is just one of them, at least in my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is that with the game of hockey, it's an 82-game physical sport. And I knew that I had a feeling that when they played Bergeron in the 82nd game, 37 years old, when he didn't need to play and he had the upper body injury, I had a feeling that was gonna shoot us in the foot. And we had a losing record against the Florida Panthers in the regular season, losing 3 games and winning only 1 game. But Ben, go ahead, take it away. Finish it off.
Yeah, just wanted to shout out quick couple of teams. Seattle Kraken.
Let's go, Kraken.
First time they've ever been in the playoffs. What do? They win Game 5 and Game 7 in Colorado.
Bye, Colorado.
Colorado Avalanche just won the Stanley Cup last year. Kraken beats them in the first round, so got to give some love to the Seattle Kraken, especially winning Game 7 on the road. And speaking of love,
playoff games,
got to give Toronto a little bit of love too. They had not won a playoff series since 2004, and they beat Tampa Bay, who didn't win last year, but the Tampa Bay Lightning had gone to 3 straight Stanley Cups, and Toronto beats them again Game 5 in Tampa and Game 7 in Tampa. So just wanted to give a quick shout out. Last year's Stanley Cup representation, Tampa Bay and Colorado out in round 1.
And no Tampa Bay Lightning. That's just, it's going to be and new. And shout out to the Dallas Stars. I'm here in Dallas. I represent.
And shout out to them. I hear it's everything just as big in Texas as they say. But hey, all good stuff. Let's also just make a – go ahead. I was about to pass it to you.
Okay. No, I was going to say, like, unlike in the past, so I just want to talk about expansion teams. In the past, we've all seen expansion teams go through their, first-year struggles, not be very good. In the NHL, like, it's like you're set up for success because Seattle's literally following the blueprint that Vegas set 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they found that instant success, and they've been riding that wave ever since. So, like, I just want to just point that out. I'm like, hockey's like that one sport where the expansion team has as good a chance to really make it better than any other sport.
No, and and that's the thing is that when they did the expansion draft here in Seattle, they did it at the the Gasworks Park, which was really dope. It was a really, really, really cool event right by the water. And I was like, if they really do this right, in a couple of years, they can really contend. And when I saw this roster, I'm like, I'm actually pretty impressed with how they were able to construct this. But, hey, it's all good. Ben, any other final thoughts on hockey before we can get back to the exciting stuff in life?
No, like, that's what I want to talk about.
You satisfied? You good? You got your appetite good with some hockey? You done? You're good. You're good. Okay. Ben, I know how excited y'all about talking about Donovan Mitchell. So take it away with Donovan Mitchell. Light it up for us.
All right. So going to the NBA and kind of surprises. Donovan Mitchell, I'm sorry, these statistics are just bad for somebody who's a superstar. So in the series against the Knicks, which, by the way, the Cavs were the 4 seed and they were the favorites and they lost 4-1. Donovan Mitchell, 13 out of 45 for threes. That's 29%. Even on free throws, which he's a career 86% free throw shooter. In the series, 72%. For points per game against the Knicks, 23.2. He normally averages 28 in the playoffs. And mind you, this is the team that supposedly wanted you and Stephen A. Smith, and I'm sure many other Knicks fans wanted Donovan Mitchell, which should have given the actual Donovan Mitchell motivation to beat them. And I'm sorry, he flopped out, man. That is not what Cleveland expected. You're the dog. You're the one. That's not good enough, and especially to lose in 5 games. Like that, I'm sorry, he can't get a pass. He underperformed.
I mean, but here's the question, though. Here's the question, go Gary. Since you're a New Yorker, I want to throw this question to you. Do you still make that trade for Donovan Mitchell?
See, this is where it gets interesting because if the Knicks had lost to Cleveland, then the narrative would have been you should have traded for Donovan Mitchell. You had the opportunity. Why didn't you just get rid of RJ Barrett? Except that RJ Barrett turned it on and made Donovan Mitchell look like such a punk in the last couple of games. Like, so it's like one of those, like, you have to be careful, answering that question. Like the armchair coach, armchair basketball player saying, yeah, we don't need Donovan Mitchell. Like, we never needed Donovan Mitchell. But the reality is, if he did this, like, what's the flip side? If he did this in a Knicks uniform, now the pressure's on Donovan Mitchell to come back. Like, granted, there's pressure on him now, but Cleveland pressure and New York pressure are two vastly different beasts. And so I know I'm not really answering the question because I'm like, I don't know. I think
it's not an easy answer. It's not
like, it's one of those, you kind of have to either make the trade or not make the trade and just literally live with it. And the Knicks, I'm watching the game simultaneously right now. And even though they're down 3, it's like, hey, they're in the second round. They have home court advantage in the second round of the NBA playoffs. Who had that coming? Who had that? Who had that as a narrative?
I mean, that's facts. And Marissa, all I'm going to say is I still would make that trade because circumstances are circumstances, and we don't know what the alternate universe would have been like if they actually had made the trade for Donovan Mitchell. So, yes, albeit in a 5-game series, they still won. Donovan Mitchell didn't play good. I still think that long-term, Donovan Mitchell's upside is a lot bigger, is higher with him over RJ Burrito. And I mean, you just wonder. But Marissa, I say would you make the trade and then take it off with us as far as biggest surprises thus far in the playoffs?
I agree with everything that Gary just said. I mean, there's no need for me to echo it, the fact of the matter. Like Donovan Mitchell, and I saw a lot of this trending on Twitter, is the Donovan Mitchell that people saw in the postseason when he was with his former team. Where was that kind of energy and his ability, his playing ability at when it was the postseason here for the Cleveland Cavaliers? Was the investment was the risk or reward? And a lot of people are seeing it as a risk. But people have bad games. He pretty much had a bad series, and it came at the wrong time.
Okay, that's facts. I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
So,
what are some? Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, on the end, there's a couple of teams that stand out to me right now that should be very concerned. One of them is right now in Cabo or Cancun, and that is the Memphis Grizzlies. And one currently right now that can't make buckets and had more turnovers than the bakery that I lived down the street from, and that's the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics better figure it out because the 76ers are figuring out if possibly Embiid, can shout out to him winning MVP as deservingly so. They have figured it out without him. You allowed someone who was dressed like the Cookie Monster because he could not attend this year's Met Gala come out there and put a 45-piece into your soul. And y'all couldn't figure it out. You couldn't figure out how to stop him. You couldn't figure out how to, hang onto the ball. 16 turnovers is unacceptable. And you're there at home. So y'all need to figure that out quick to tie the series up and to make it more interesting, because I said that without Embiid, I thought that Boston would win this in 6. It's not looking so, but we don't know when Embiid is going to come back. Now, let me flip it to the Memphis Grizzlies. The embarrassing villain of all villains, and even he blamed the media for posing him as a villain, is Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks poked the bear. Dylan Brooks awoke a sleeping giant, called the 38-year-old, schooled him so badly, LeBron James. If you're going to talk stuff, you better back it up. If you're going to say something about the team and how they're slow, if you, Ja Morant, is going to say that you're not, quote unquote, worried about the West, the problem is you need to be worried about experience. Okay, you all have been there. You've been on the yacht and you've been kicked off the yacht, aka the first round. You haven't experienced what the second round is because you all are doing any kind of new TikTok craze and all this other stuff. Now, shout out to Ja Morant. He did give said that his off the court issues was a problem. That he took responsibility as far as that is concerned. But now that Dylan Brooks got pretty much Craig of Friday fired on his day off, he needs to go figure it out for himself, because the comments that has been said, like, well, you better go learn Chinese, buddy, because you're not going to be on another NBA team again. It could come to fruition. I don't know any NBA team that's going to take a risk on him because of the behaviors. I don't know what the stats are. Like I said, Ben, you're really good at pulling up the stats, but as far as I knew, his tests were nothing to be proud of. So
call it what it is, Marissa. He sucked.
He did. And for you to poke the bear of a team that's not only been there, several of the team the players on that team have won hardware. So if you're going to, and I talked about it extensively on my page, if you're going to wake up the sleeping giant, if you're going to go and poke the bear, you better back it up, because other than that, you're going to now find out or try to have your agent shop you around and try to fit into the next NBA team, which right now is not looking good in your favor.
I mean, look, those are facts. And Ben, before I toss it to you, I'm going to say 2 words: Lance Stevenson.
No,
that's who he's going to be. He's going to be Lance Stevenson. I said it. He's that dude that's just going to get pimped around the NBA. He's going to sign these 1-year deals. And I'm calling it now on Death, Taxes, and Sports episode 375. He will not be in the league in 3 years. I am calling it.
Come on.
Lance Stevenson. That's who he is. Ben, go ahead.
No, we're going to Gary. Gary, we're headed to you.
Go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry.
Dylan Brooks is a punk. And there's a song that came out from the group Brand Nubian in the early 90s. Punks jump up to get beat down. And that's what we saw.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry. Enjoy the Shanghai Sharks, Dylan. You want to sit here and poke the bear, and then the bear mauls your ass. And that's exactly what happens.
Facts.
Now, as far as Memphis is concerned, I'm not surprised. I honestly said, I'm like, they were them. I mean, we saw it. Them in Sacramento were ripe for the picking. They were ripe to get ups. I can't even call it an up. Like, literally, the only upset of the first round, in my opinion, is going to be like Milwaukee over Miami. That's the only one, and that's just because, like, as much as I love Jimmy Butler, I just thought that Milwaukee had far too much for them to deal with, and then it turns out that Milwaukee got dealt with. But there's no real, like, the Knicks beating Cleveland is not as as my best friend said, the Knicks are
hell yeah, baby!
4. No, I'm about to do the same thing with this Lakers game coming up next, but yeah.
Come on, Knicks.
Cleveland, the Knicks beating Cleveland, not a surprise. Golden State beating Sacramento, not a surprise, even though Sacramento had a great season. The Lakers beating Memphis. Yes, Memphis had the better season, but they are not like there's more maturity issues.
Where's the fucking foul, man? I'm so sorry, G. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, you're not. You're actually not sorry.
I'm not sorry at all. I'm not sorry at all.
All right.
What the fuck is the foul, ref?
Gary, you got to go on mute. No, I'm just
Hold on.
kidding.
If I can finish my point, then you feel free to. You can feel free
I love it here.
Go ahead.
Let me finish my point. Okay, thank you. All right. So yes, like I think this postseason was more indicative of one thing for sure. If these teams gave a shit more about the regular season, then you wouldn't see a Memphis or a Sacramento in a higher seed like that. If this was real life and like they actually took it seriously like they used to, like the Lakers would have been like a 3 or a 4 seed. The Warriors would probably have been the 2 seed in the West had they cared or had they been healthy. They just need to get into the tournament, and they did, and now you're seeing this happening. So, yes, we're seeing these like 8 versus 5 matchups. This was a 6 versus 7 matchup in the Western Conference. Like this is what the NBA is becoming. Is it a good thing? I don't know, but that's the reality of it. There really aren't any surprises at this point.
I agree.
I mean, those are all facts. I mean, I think that all I'm going to say is that, Marissa, you made a very good point, and then we'll toss it to Sacramento for you, Ben, is that Boston, I think Mazzulla is showing his inexperience, and I think it's very evident because you even look at the series against Atlanta, that should not have been 6 games, and that could have easily gone to a game 7. It was tied 113 with
sorry,
2.
I don't want to lose my point on that. The because you brought it up, Trae Young, James Harden, isolation, 3-pointer. How do you let the same damn thing happen that happened in Game 5 against Atlanta happen again? And I'm sorry, Al Horford, you're a great player, but he's 45 years old.
Guarding?
He cannot guard Harden.
He's 127 years old. Okay,
that is just horrible coaching. You need
this is Al Horford's last chance to get any kind of chance to get hardware. Same thing with Chris. I can't stay healthy during the postseason, Paul. This is their last AARP of the NBA chance of being a contributor for their teams, respectively, to get the hardware. Gentlemen, you know it. If they are out. If their team ends up being out, if the 76ers puts the Celtics out, if for some reason that Phoenix does not get it together, now being down 0-2, and as much as Kevin Durant has been a contributor and as much as Devin Booker is talented, if these gentlemen do not figure it out quickly, then Chris Paul is going to go to the Hall of Fame ringless, and Al Horford is going to go to the Hall of Fame ringless. They had great careers, but you are near, should I say, quote unquote, to the end of the road. I mean, I don't have a lighter with me, but let's put it up in the air because it's going to be to that point where they either need to win it now or they need to win it now. And unfortunately for the Suns, I don't see it happening. For the Celtics, they got to turn it around tomorrow night.
I'm going to say is Al Horford played during Greg Oden's time in the national championship game in 2007.
And where's Greg Oden now? Doing, Old Spice commercials and now playing for the Big Three. I digress.
I'm just saying that's not what Al Horford is. I'm just saying. But Ben, let's throw it to you. Give your thoughts on Sacramento, and then I'm going to give you a trade idea because I think this one I'm curious about your thoughts. But go ahead on Sacramento. Then let's do Ben's impressions and let's do final thoughts. But Gary, we're also going to do a 30-second grab as well.
I was just going to say, Gary, I was going to let you go first on Chris Paul before I go to the Kings.
Real quick.
You go first, and then I'll do the Kings. Go for it.
Because I feel like Nostradamus. I feel like I have plenty of proof. There are several episodes that we can go back in the archives. I have said it ad nauseum, repeatedly till my face turns blue if it was even physically possible for that to even happen. It's death, it's taxes, and it's the Chris Paul postseason injury that screws up everybody's postseason plans. We've seen this with the Clippers. We've seen this with the Rockets. We've seen this with the Hornets, Pelicans, Hornets, whatever they're at, wherever they were at that point. And now we're seeing this with the Suns. It's the same thing over and over and over again. You get to springtime, and all of a sudden the joints tighten up. Like it's 1 year it's a hamstring, 1 year it's the elbow, 1 year it's the shoulder. This year it's the groin, and you're absolutely right. State Farm cannot save his ass. Nothing. Like I don't know what it is. Is it? We've heard rumors like, is he a bad teammate? Is he a bad person? Like I don't know that for sure. I can't speak on that, but like this man is probably going to retire without a championship because he physically can't get through an entire spring.
Yeah, I mean, nothing there and nothing wrong there. And I just wanted to say, yes, the Kings lost, but the fact that they took the defending champs to 7 games and the fact that they won an elimination game in Golden State, Game 6, I feel they deserve some credit for, making that series entertaining and really pushing Golden State to the limit. So, Mike Brown, Coach of the Year, deservedly so. And, Sacramento, like I said, they lost, but man, they pushed Golden State. Those are the defending champs, and they made them go 7 games. So I thought, it's worth acknowledging the Kings.
Real quick. Here's the thing with Sacramento. Like, they can't take that step back again. Yeah. They can't go back to being a 32, 33, 34 win team. They have to build on this momentum. They have to be able to pay. They got to give De'Aaron Fox all the money. They got to give Sabonis his money. They have to Harrison Barnes, let him go on. Fine. Like he's good, but he's going to find a home someplace else in this league. And that's fine.
They were only good because they didn't surprise anybody, but now they're gonna surprise.
Exactly. Now much they this year were Memphis last year, in which everybody thought Memphis was good, but they didn't think that good. And now they're going to come back to earth. Now the question is Mike Brown going to be able to sustain this success?
Okay. All right. So all good stuff. So before we wrap up, we like to do Ben's impressions, and so I have a trade. Ben, give your thoughts, and then Marissa and Gary, feel free to hop in. If you are a team in Arizona Cardinals and say, hey, I have DeAndre Hopkins available, would you, and he says, listen, I will trade a first rounder, 2 seconds, and a third in 2025. Would you do it for DeAndre Hopkins?
Okay, say the package again.
Okay, so if I'm the Cardinals GM and I'm calling you and saying, hey, I got DeAndre Hopkins, I trade you a first rounder, 2 seconds for 2024, 2025, and 2 third rounders, 2024 and 2025. Do you make that trade?
Oof.
That's I still think DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best 5 wide receivers in the NFL right now. Which, yes, he's older, and last season was suspended, but man, I think that's too much, even for that much of a talent. That's too much draft capital, because you do that trade, and let's say you got him for 3 years and you don't win a Super Bowl and you've lost all those draft picks, you kind of lost the trade. So not for that package, no.
Okay.
DeAndre Hopkins is only 30, but he seems like he's been in the league for a very long time. So that I agree with Ben. That's a lot, a haul to put an investment into a 30, even though on paper he's 30, but the productivity level, what are you going to get out of him if you're investing all of that into him? Yes, it's risk and reward. We've seen that, gentlemen, year after year, draft after draft, free agency after free agency. We've seen it. We talked about it. We text about it. We tweet about it. We put it on Facebook, whatever. But that's too much to invest in on one player, especially give up on a first rounder for DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know about that. I don't think I could do that.
Okay.
I mean, I recognize that D-Hop is much better than DeAndre Swift, but DeAndre Swift is like 25 and a 4th round pick. I realize the talent is different, but still, you would think that DeAndre Swift would get more. You'd think that he would get more than a 4th.
Right. DeAndre Swift is 25, and can y'all hear me? I keep fading now. Okay. I was going to say DeAndre Swift is 25 and got question marks around him about his health and staying healthy. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, no, that's all real. That's definitely all real. But guys, this has been a very fun episode. Marissa, your face is frozen, but we can hear you. You're like frozen, but it's all good. Guys,
she's whistling. I don't know what she's whistling at, but she's whistling.
but guys, Marissa, can you hear us? I don't know what happened. Well, Gary, again, we send you a lot of love, with what you're going through during this time.
Thank you.
And your friend, hopefully he can, hopefully he finds happiness in all of his endeavors.
He's about 4.1 seconds away from that, but yeah.
Okay, sounds good. And hopefully we're 48 minutes away from watching these Lakers win.
Yes.
Ben, buddy, glad to have you back on here. It's been fun. We'll get back at it soon, guys. So, Marissa, I'm sure you'll be back at some point after we're gone. So, to all of our followers, it's great to be back. We're episode 81 as the road to episode 100 continues. God damn, yeah, that's your buddy right there. I know, that sounds kind of painful. But hey, you guys take care. Peace and love, guys. We're out.
We out.
Later.